from. Q. Which are the ways through which government can capture data of informal sector? Examine the importance of data collected through GST and demonetization for policymakers. 150 words. The Hindu introduction. The informal sector is defined as the part of the economy where the establishment does not maintain regular accounts. It is informal because it is not subject to most of the traditional ways in which you can capture data. Capturing data from the informal sector. For the informal sector, the principal source of data is through establishment surveys. Regular establishment surveys, as are implemented by the task force under Ardent Panagarya, will help. Importance of GST in understanding informal sector. GST will certainly capture a lot more monthly data. 1. Types and scope of production in GST form. Every producer of a good or service makes his payment and also gives some details about the production which is subject to tax. From that, policymakers can draw conclusions. Because the entities who will be filing this regular monthly return will be the larger companies, not the informal sector, we will get fairly quick disaggregated data for the larger entities from the GST database. However, the input tax credit where the larger entities outsource goods and services to smaller entities in the informal sector will be of great help. 2. Spatial divergences of production. In addition to aggregates, you will also get data on interstate transactions which was previously not available. This will give us a much better picture of a spatial spread of economic activity. The spatial divergences in India can then be very easily traced and tackled, with which to have an impact on the informal sector. That sort of information will be very useful to the policy establishment. Then they start looking at GST data more closely. Q. Exports are an important driver of economic growth and will also help create much needed jobs for India's growing workforce. In this regard, examine the constraints being faced by labor-intensive export industries in India and necessary measures needed to address these constraints. 250 words. Live economic status of Indian exports. According to the World Trade Organization, WTO merchandise trade volume of India in 2017 is expected to grow by 3.6%, compared to 1.3% in 2016. www.insightsindia.com 10 www.insightsis.com. Importance of exports. Exports are an important driver of economic growth and will also help create much needed jobs for India's growing workforce. They played an important role in transforming countries such as South Korea and China in recent decades. Labor-intensive industries in India are particularly important because of its capacity to absorb large workforce against stagnant agriculture and automatic and skilled service sector. Therefore, India will need to work on increasing competitiveness to expand its exports share in the world market. Constraints. 1. Competition from other smaller countries. India stands to gain as labor-intensive manufacturing is moving out of China due to rising wages and an aging population. But this is not happening in a big way, and India is losing out to other Asian countries such as Bangladesh and Vietnam. India's revealed comparative advantage, an indicator of competitiveness in some of the labor-intensive sectors, has actually declined over the past decade. 2. Labor laws. Indian firms in the apparel and leather sectors are smaller than those in China, Vietnam and Bangladesh. The reason for this is regressive labor laws. Land acquisition problem. Rising protectionism. There is a threat of rising protectionism. India needs to be prepared to protect its interests without compromising on its open trade policy. India has always supported rule-based multilateral trade negotiations under the WTO. Measures needed. India needs structural changes to be able to attain higher and sustainable exports growth in the medium to long run, particularly in labor-intensive sectors. The government of India has taken several measures to boost exports in its midterm review of Foreign Trade Policy 2015-20. 1. Incentives for specific sectors which are labor-intensive. Apart from incentives for specific sectors such as ready-made garments and footwear, India is losing out in labor-intensive sectors like apparel and footwear, and why it is important to focus on these sectors. For instance, apparel is 80 times more labor-intensive than the auto sector. 2. Duty-free procurement of inputs for exports. Government is allowing duty-free procurement of the inputs needed for exports on a self-assessment basis. 3. Logistic Division established. A new logistics division has been established in the Department of Commerce to coordinate development in the logistics space. 4. Simplification of tax structure. The recent changes in the goods and services tax are likely to help the export sector. 5. Reformed labor market. The government will need to move forward with reforms in the factory market. India has a large number of small enterprises, which are not in a position to attain economies of scale and compete in international markets. www.insightsinIndia.com 11 www.insightsays.com Firms in labor-intensive sectors will need more freedom to operate. Similarly, more flexibility in land acquisition will also help the manufacturing sector. 6. Competitive currency. It is important to keep the currency competitive. The RBI has done well in recent months